Hey friends! Welcome back to week 2 of Liptember. This is the charity where we wear lipstick every day in the month of September to raise awareness and funds for women's mental health. I'm Melody Monroe, she, her. I have depression, anxiety, and I was just diagnosed with ADHD. In this video, I'm gonna show you my looks from this week, and I also want to talk about what it's like to go to your doctor and say, hey, I need some help with my mental health, and what that process actually looks like, or at least how it was when I went through that process. And then at the very end, I just want to give you some tips that I've gathered from some friends and myself that we think might help you maintain good mental health. Let's have a look at my lips from this week. So that was my experience with getting diagnosed with ADHD. I hope you enjoyed it and the fun little makeup I did. I want to talk about my experience with how it went the first time I went to my doctor to talk about mental health. So the first time that I kind of noticed something was up was pretty late in high school, in the 2 last years of high school, which in my state is called VCE. And at that time it's obviously pretty stressful for most students, but I found that I was feeling extremely unmotivated, so that I would be late to school pretty much every day because I just did not want to go. And then eventually my anxiety, well, I didn't know what it was, but then eventually I would get kind of freaked out that if I don't go I'm gonna get in trouble, and I'm already late, I'm gonna get in trouble. The more late I am, the more trouble I'm gonna get in, if I go now I might make it in time. And so those kind of feelings were increasing towards the end of high school. I also experienced what I called at the time stress belly, which was something I just casually described to my friends as the day before a test or whatever. It's the morning of the test or whatever, and you get really you feel sick, or you might get pain in your stomach or something. You just feel, you get stress in your belly. And they kind of looked at me like, what? No, I don't. And I was like, oh shit, that's not normal. Okay. And that was the first time I'd ever said that out loud to someone, but also to have them respond as what are you talking about? I was like, oh shit, what is that then? I also had a conversation with one of my best friends, and I was like, I feel like you stress just the right amount for exams, you worry, you study, you smash the exam, voila, you've got the perfect system. And she turned to me and said, actually I don't. I'm actually really freaked out, and to the point that I have anxiety, as a condition. And I was like, oh, whoa, first of all, my bad. I'm sorry for completely misreading your experience and trying to tell you your life. And also, we'd been friends a really, really long time. We're quite similar people. So I started to think, what if I also have anxiety? So that started my brain ticking away about it. I was also reading Tumblr a lot at the time, which had some good, some not so good mental health awareness going on. After I finished high school, summertime is actually my worst time for depression, which shocks a lot of people, especially in Australia, where summer is yeah, summer, beaches, fucking Barbies, yeah. I'm a winter person, and summertime is this big stretch of time. It's the biggest part of the year where you have no structure whatsoever. You have 6 weeks of holidays between year 12 and university. How long was it actually? Because I finished exams in November and I think I started uni in March. So it was 4 or 5 months of nothing. And I had undiagnosed ADHD at the time, so I kind of fell to pieces a little bit and fell into a bit of a depression. And I was like, man, I barely even want to get off the couch most days. Something's got to be going on. Luckily, I had a really good GP that I felt really comfortable talking to, so I made an appointment to go see him, and I went in and I told him about my stress belly, and I told him about how, I hated getting up in the morning and I didn't want to do anything and I just felt crappy. And he was like, okay, well, it sounds like you might be having some mental health problems. Let's do some tests and explore that a bit further. So he explained to me what we were doing and why we were doing it, which is why I love this GP. He's incredibly thorough. And so from memory, we did 2 quick little quizzes. One of them is the K10, which I believe is a depression rating scale. And the other one is a DAS, which is a depression, anxiety, and stress scale. So once we completed those quizzes, he agreed with me that I had some increased anxiety and depression outside of normal ranges and asked me what I would like to do. And this is again where he's a really great doctor, because he immediately asked me, here's the information, you are experiencing increased anxiety and depression, what would you like to do about it? Which is exactly what you want to hear as a patient. So I said, I think medication might be helpful, but I don't want to just jump straight into that because, I don't want to be taking these chemicals if I don't really need them. So I thought, let's try just talking to a psychologist first, and then, I can come back to medication if I feel like I need it. So he agreed that was a good idea, and he recommended a psychologist to me. And lucky me, that psychologist that he recommended in 2014 is still the one that I see today. I connected really well with her. So how do you get from the GP to the psychologist, right? The way that you do that in Australia is with a mental health care plan. Your GP can write this with you, and basically they write down for the mental health service that you're being referred to, what you're experiencing at the moment, what you'd like to change. For example, do you want to establish better life routine? They'll just do something very basic and vague to kind of give them somewhere to go from usually. So mine would say something like, my patient age, whatever I was at the time, she's experiencing some increased anxiety and depression. She would like to see this psychologist to discuss and develop some coping strategies for things such as reducing my anxiety, just managing stress and things like that. Then the doctor would write that letter and send it off to the psychologist, or sometimes they give it to you. If you're already connected to the service, they might just give you the letter to give to them the next time you go along. So after my mental health care plan was done, I was then entitled to Medicare rebates on some of my appointments. So the way it works with the mental health care plan, I apologize, I always forget which order it is, but I have ADHD, so now we know why. You get 4 appointments from one mental health care plan and you get 6 from the other. I can't remember if you get 6 and then 4, but basically you get 10 appointments per year where you get a Medicare rebate on, which is obviously not enough, but that's the government's problem and we can't make them fix it. This year and last year, they released 10 additional sessions that are Medicare rebated because of the COVID-19 pandemic, of course. So at the moment, you can access 20 sessions per year with the Medicare rebate, but previously it was only 10. Once you're connected to the service, you can give them a call, or perhaps they'll call you. Your doctor might discuss that with you, how you prefer to set it up. If you have really bad anxiety about phone calls, you might want to ask them if you can get the service to call you. Just make sure that you ask for what you need. I know it's kind of scary and hard, and especially when you have anxiety and social anxiety, it's really hard to speak up for yourself, but when it comes to mental health care, it's really, really important that you're comfortable and happy with the people that you're working with. And, I'm not saying that everything that your psychologist said to you is going to make you feel sunshiny, because, sometimes my psychologist points out things and I'm like, oh, yeah. And, I don't always leave the session feeling like, yes, I'm fixing myself today. Like, sometimes you just leave and you're like, ugh. Therapy is not a magic button that fixes you, but I forgot my point. Frick. Once you connect with someone, it's really important that you feel like you can trust them, that they don't say anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, because while people in the mental health industry do mean well, there are occasionally going to be people who don't communicate in a way that suits you. There are going to be people who don't understand your worldview. You have every right to say that you don't want to see that person anymore. I was really lucky that the first psychologist that I saw was one that I love and really get along with, and she really understands my perspective and really respects my point of view. And my advice with speaking with therapists and stuff would be, try to be as open as you can, but don't go outside of your comfort zone, because you're there for your benefit, and if you don't feel comfortable talking about something with someone, that's okay. Maybe you will next time, maybe you won't. Maybe you need to talk to someone different about that problem. I've spoken to different counsellors for different issues as well. I spoke to a trauma-specific counsellor after I encountered a trauma, and that really, really benefited me in a way that my regular psychologist wasn't, because she's not trained specifically to be a trauma therapist, whereas the person that I spoke to was. And so they really helped me hone in on that issue and kind of address it. And now I really feel like I've moved past it in a way that I hadn't before I spoke to that person. So that's what I mean about like asking for what you need. You know what I mean? You can use multiple services to suit your needs. It's all about what's going to help you at the end of the day. And everyone's different, so it's up to you to decide what that's going to be. And I think you need to take the advice of your doctors into account, but if you really need a second opinion, you should try and get that second opinion. Like, you're entirely valid to want and seek that. After I had been seeing my psychologist for about a year, I went back to my GP because I had felt that I had improved, but I hadn't felt that it was significant enough. I felt like I needed to try something new. So I went back to my GP, the really good one, and I asked him if I could try some medications. So he went through some options with me. We chose a medication, I tried it, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it didn't really go that well. So the very first medication that I tried, the first 2 weeks, it really messed with my concentration levels, it messed with my mood, it messed with my energy. It was just 2 weeks of awful. So I went back to my GP and I said, get me off this medication. And he said, all right, let's try something else then. So number one, I had to make sure that I made that appointment to ask to change the medication, because my doctor wasn't going to know how bad it was going for me until I told him. So I went and I told him, and I was determined, but he was a good doctor, so he listened to me. Some doctors you might have to fight. I'm sorry to say, sometimes doctors don't want to hear it when you say, I can't deal with these side effects, but if it's that bad, you tell them it's that bad and you fight them. Like, unfortunately in this industry, you do have to advocate for yourself to an extent. And if that sounds big and scary, there are services that can support you through that. You can get someone who can literally just come with you to an appointment to help you feel more comfortable. So you're not in this alone. As big and scary as it all kind of sounds, I promise you that there are people out there who really do care and who really want to help you and who can help you. And it's just a matter of finding what's right for you. After I'd been on medication for a couple of years, I had further mental health troubles. I went into a private hospital. I actually don't remember how I went to hospital the first time. That whole time period's a bit of a blur. But yeah, I was able to go to a private mental hospital, which I think is a very different experience to a public hospital, but I've never been to a public mental health hospital. But the private hospital that I attended is the one that I still go to for TMS, so it was really good for my recovery when I was having really serious depression, and also the TMS treatments and the continued TMS maintenance treatments that I've been doing have really helped with that. And that's, again, another treatment that I had never ever heard of before my psychiatrist recommended it to me. And man, it sounds like a fucking sci-fi, but I love it. It's totally changed my life. And now that I'm diagnosed with ADHD, I think I'm kind of gonna my mental health back into shape. So to kind of sum up, basically the process of seeking help, it can be really daunting, and you have to kind of open yourself up in a way that is kind of scary. Like, talking to a psychologist for the first time is really daunting, but with the right person, you won't feel afraid. With the right person, you'll feel comfortable enough that you can talk. If you keep trying and you keep trying different things, you'll eventually figure out what works for you, and you'll figure out what doesn't along the way, unfortunately, but you'll eventually figure out what does work for you. And for me, some medications are really bad and some medications are really good. The medication that I'm on right now, I've been on for 3 years, I think. So when you find what works, you can kind of build it up. And so I've got my medication that works, I've got my psychologist that works, I've got my psychiatrist that works, I've got my TMS that works, and now I'm adding on the ADHD that works. And eventually we're gonna get to a successful life. Oh, that was wholesome. Let's wrap this baby up with some mental health tips. So I asked on my Instagram for some mental health tips, and here are some from my friends. One friend said, when they're too tired to exercise, they just do a small workout or clean around the apartment. And I think incidental exercise, which is doing something that takes energy, like walking to the bus stop or cleaning your house or walking your dog. It's something you kind of had to do anyway, but it exerts energy. I call it incidental exercise. It's a way of kind of reframing the activity, but also acknowledging the fact that it does take your physical effort and energy to do it, and that can be seen as a good thing. Doing exercise can be seen as a good thing. Another friend said, dancing like a lunatic, journaling, psych, and laughing. All super fun activities. I would add to that reading, arting, crafting, video gaming. I just like to do, if I'm feeling blah, I basically treat it as though I have a cold. I guess that's my tip as well. If you're having a bad mental health day and you struggle with letting yourself rest, treat it like, okay, if I had a cold today, what would I do? I would stay in bed and I would drink soup. And that sounds really nice. And so then I do that, and then it's like, oh, well, I'm just taking care of myself. And it's, you just got to recognize that I'm unwell right now, and I just got to do what I got to do to get through that part, and then it'll be okay. And from my teammate Renee, we have a tip. She says, it's really important to listen to your body and know that needing more rest can be okay. Getting overwhelmed in social situations is totally okay. Not being able to concentrate is okay. What's not okay is not listening to your body. It takes practice over a long period of time, and you can find doctors, therapists, meditation experts, yogis, or other allied professionals to work with you on these things. You don't have to do it alone. She says, took me a long time to realize that. I think that's a really great message to finish with. Thanks, Renee. You can find our team at liptember.com.au/empowermentinmind. I don't remember if there's dashes in there or not. There will be a link in the description. If you'd like to join our team before the end of September, just send me a message and I'll let you know how. All you have to do is sign up on the Liptember website. But if you need any help, absolutely get in touch. Thank you so much for all your support. We have had to increase our team goal again because we've already smashed through 1,000, and we are now up to, we surpassed $1,200 last I checked. So I've increased the goal to $1,500. We've still got another 2 weeks. I don't know if I'm gonna have to increase my goal again. I can't believe this. So thank you so much for all your support. I totally understand anybody who can't donate right now. It's been a hell of a time. I totally understand it. Please don't feel upset if you can't donate. We appreciate you participating in the conversation, commenting, sharing, getting involved that way is totally awesome as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week for some excellent LGBTQ+ content. Bye! Hey friends!